Hello everyone and welcome to my video. I will read y'all a story that doesn't necessarily connect with the other dreams other than the fact that it has stories, but it is fun to read and it has pretty pictures. So, hope you enjoy. The story doesn't really have a title. I just randomly took a word, purple pomegranate blossoms, and that was the title of the story. Anyway, so I will read and explain along the way since it's a short story. So, one time I went to bed and dreamt that Mary and I were sneaking into a private botanical garden to steal some plants that were righteously ours. Okay, just a quick note. So there are a lot of gardens around my city, and so my sister is into herbal medicine and things like that. So if we go out, we're always, well, we were when we were younger, always experimenting with the plants that are around our properties, and we would just like take like a leaf, root, something. We weren't taking like whole plants. That's not right. So that was just fun. Just showed up in this dream that we don't actually break into private botanical gardens and take their plants. That's just wrong. Well, we scaled the fence and went in, hiding time to time from people who walked by. Mary filled her box with rare yellow rutabagas, and I grabbed an armful of purple pomegranate blossoms. Hey, fun fact, did you know that rutabagas are banned from the US? Everywhere except here. It's odd. And purple pomegranate blossoms do not exist, except in my dreams. Anyway, it was the hanging vine variety. Like this. But anyway, I got lost and tried to look for a way out, so I wandered everywhere, occasionally ducking from people who seemed better than me, who acted better than me. Anyway, exasperated, I jumped into a wall of the garden. I jumped a wall of the garden and into a monkey pit. Random monkey pit. So I sat down a minute to assess my situation, and before you know it, I'm covered in stinky, screaming monkeys. Even though they were cute and I ended up playing with them for a little bit, I jumped back over the wall to find Mary. By the time I found her, she was already jumping out of the garden and running towards the truck. So I followed her as fast as I could and jumped the fence out of there. I was running towards the truck with my arm full of purple pomegranate blossoms, but by that time, Mary had already gotten into the car. I was making my way towards it when I tripped into a rather large ditch with a lot of vegetation on it. In it. I laid flat on my face for some time, having dropped all my flowers. I lifted my head to look up. I saw that I was shrinking. I heard Mary start the car and drive off. I saw everything get bigger, and when I stopped shrinking, the world around me looked like a forest. My flowers were blown away in the wind. No matter, I tried picking my way out of the ditch, but then I sensed a fairy nearby. She had a huge head, a small body, lacy wings, and spoke with a high-pitched voice. This was a modern culture fairy. She looked cartoony, but she also looked real. She also had purplish hair and a ponytail and pink lipstick. She introduced herself as someone who is becoming, but already is, a fairy princess, which I didn't think meant much. She kept contradicting herself, and then she started dragging me places, all the while saying how the town was having a competition with the mermaids, and that I should help by recording the events of the competition in my dream journal, which magically appeared in my hands. This journal. Holding my hand tightly while flying with her tiny wings and pixie dust, she successfully dragged me places against my will, and when we stopped at a worthy location, she let go, pointed to whatever it was, and said in her squeaky voice, "Write that!" I actually wrote a couple of things down, but then I remembered what my professor said about fairies and how I shouldn't have anything to do with fairies, so I stopped. However, when I did, I noticed a crowd of fairy folk around me, and they started staring at my book like they had never seen a book before. I handed it to one fairy boy who oohed and awed at it, then he passed it to one other fairy who likewise did the same. It did not take long for me to get my book back after the crowd finished looking at it. Also, my fairy, the one with purple hair, the one who probably shrunk me, was getting impatient and rushing everyone. She flew my way, and I asked her if I could go home. Oh, by the way, let me go ahead and show you the illustration. I'm very proud of it. I might make it my thumbnail. She gave me an odd look and said no. Then she grabbed my hand and dragged me to a pond. This, I came to realize, was where the mermaids lived. So I stared at the water, complete with stones and lily pads, and expected a giant head to pop out of the water, because mermaids are usually full-sized human-ish women with fishtails. But instead, I was greeted by a tiny mermaid. After my purple-haired companion commanded me to write that down, I produced sounds in my book that made it sound like I was writing, but it's not like she was checking my work. I don't wonder if they could even read. She then proceeded to argue with another fairy about her actually being a princess and her princess status, and then with a mermaid somewhere along the pond about the competition, the events of which I can't remember. I asked my fairy again if she could take me home or change me back, but she ignored me. So I asked the other fairies, but they refused. So desperate, I sat on the edge of the pond where a mermaid with a kind face ran towards me. I thought she wanted to see my book, but she refused. I asked if she could. She probably would have gotten it wet anyway. She dove down. I asked if she could help me, and she nodded. She dove down and came back up again with a gold container filled with water. I thanked her, and I drank from it. I could see my purple-haired fairy panicking and yelling at me and the mermaid before they disappeared, and I was back home my normal size with my book. I like this drawing better than the fairy one I did in the earlier page. Oh man, my pages got damaged. Anyway, that's something for later. I like her makeup and her scales. She gave me a brass vase like that to drink from, which when I think about it, it looks a lot like the antiques that my mom gets. And I just drank from it because it was magic. I think I'll find it later. So now whenever I look at a puddle or a pool or anything like that, I imagine tiny mermaids. I don't imagine like big mermaids, because that fairy who I was speaking with was about that big, and I was around that big, and so I just always thought that was kind of cute. And so the little fairies apparently don't like the little pond mermaids, and they bicker a lot. You should have heard the arguments in that dream. I should probably rewrite it, but I guess it would be semi-chaotic. So I hope you all enjoyed that story. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing for more videos, and likes and comments would be much appreciated, but not necessary. Bye.